going on, everybody? This is episode 3 of the Full Court Trap podcast, and we had a fun slate of games last night with the Champs Classic. I guess that being said, the first one not as fun, but the second one, Game of the Year candidate. We had Michigan State versus Kansas at 6:30, and then Kentucky versus Duke at 9. Michigan State versus Kansas started off kind of slow, but ramped up in the second half. And Jack, what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, to put it blankly, I think the game sucked. It was horrid hoops, to be honest. I mean, I had no fun watching that. No, I'll put it very nice. Like that is putting it very nicely. It was horrible to watch. MSU can't shoot the ball. They got maybe it'll get better as the season goes on. That game was a disaster trying to watch them shoot the ball. They got cooked by Hunter Dickinson, which I kind of expected coming in. I don't think they have the bigs to compete. Their MSU's half-court offense, I should say, a very, very big disaster. And now Kansas wasn't much better, but they have an All-American level player, so they can get away with that. And they also just had better guards. I mean, Zeke Mayo, I don't really know if he had as good as a game as he did against UNC. But Rylan Griffin, he was knocking down threes. AJ Story had a couple shots. I mean, they were just very obviously the better team, but Kansas did not look the part. If they're the number one team, college basketball is in for a rough spot. Thankfully, I don't think they're the number one team at all right now. I think it's Gonzaga, but it's a long season. We got a long time. Things are going to change. Kansas, I'm not too sure who they have coming up next. I do know they have Duke coming up in Vegas, and that's going to be a main event, star-studded game that I cannot wait for personally.
Yeah, if you want to call it the winner of this game, it was just so brutal. I don't even want to say that any of these teams was a winner of the game. I mean, Kansas obviously came out, but Bill Self, I mean, congrats on passing Fog Allen in all-time wins. I mean, that's a pretty brutal way to get it with as sloppy a basketball as that was. That first half, I just was about ready to fall over on my face in my bed from watching that. It was the Hunter Dickinson show, and that was about all that had it going for him in the first half. But I agree with what Sully said. If this is indicative of where Kansas is headed, they're definitely not the number one team in the country, nowhere close. But I think it was just a little bit of a rough game for them. I mean, it happens. I mean, first big stage or second big stage, I guess, because that UNC game was obviously one of the biggest games of the year so far, you know. Just got to get the jitters out of the way there, and hopefully they can improve on that performance because that was a disaster. And Michigan State, it's even more of a disaster for them because they just looked completely ineffective on all fronts.
Yeah, so like how the streets say, we sleep in March. Honestly, though, I was sleeping in November after that game. That was a shit show, to put it like point blank. Hunter Dickinson did his thing. Easy double-double as always. On the Michigan State side, I don't know what the offense was. They couldn't hit shots to save their life. Nothing. Moving forward, if they want to be a better team, they're going to have to get their guards being more productive, like Jaden Akins, Jeremy Fears, guys like that. And Frankie Fiddler, he was one of their bigger name transfers coming in. I believe he shot like 3 of 12 from the field. He had double-digit points, but you can't shoot that bad and expect to be in that game.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think really for a night where both teams couldn't shoot the ball at all, it just came down to who had better bigs. And when Kansas, you got the best post-scoring big in the country, you just got to utilize that. And it was good on Bill Self for kind of recognizing that, which obviously it's hard not to. Like I said, he's the best post-scoring big in the nation. But, yeah, I mean, when shots aren't falling, it's who you rely on.
I'm looking at the box score right now. Who wants to take a guess on what the team 3-point percentage for Michigan State was last night?
It was 17%, if I'm correct.
Lower.
I was about to say.
Really? 14?
12.5.
Yeah.
12.5.
Their shooting is going to be a disaster this year. They don't have shot maker. Well, Jaden Akins, he can be a shot maker.
He just plays down to his comp, though. Like, if it's a good team, he just disappears. But then if it's a mid-major, then he's going off. So he's got to pick up that production if they expect to go anywhere.
The thing about MSU, I don't like their lineups at all. Like, I don't think Tom Izzo – I shouldn't say I don't think Tom Tom Izzo knows what he's doing. He's a Hall of Famer, obviously, but he's running some lineups with Cohen Carr at 3. Cohen Carr might be the worst shooter in the country. He can't stretch the floor. He is a 4. He's a 6'5" small ball 4 who you have to surround with 4 shooters. Now, Jeremy Fears, he's not really a shooter, so that's kind of a problem. He's your main point guard. And then Kohler, I would say, is definitely their best big of the 3. Now, it's not really an insane step up, but Kohler is definitely the best. And I think you put him at the 5. Now, the big problem, or the big takeaway I came away from MSU, Xavier Booker. This dude, how is he a 5-star? I'm going to put it blankly. This dude is the laziest kid on the court. I hate to say it. He's smoking wide open threes. It's just been a nightmare for as a sophomore season. I mean, I don't know what he's like doing out there.
I wanna bring it up because we talked about it in the last episode. Jack, you were saying that if Michigan State's season, just doesn't pan out well at all, you think Tom Izzo was going to retire. With that being said, if they were to make the tournament, do you think he'd stay around knowing that this roster is young? And I mean, they were 2-0 coming into the Kansas game, and they still played it decently close with Kansas pretty much for the whole part. Do you think he would stick around to see kind of this young core grow for the next 3-4 years?
I do actually think he would stick around. I was on the part that take of I think he's done after this year. I do think he's going to stick it out. I think his last point guard is going to be Jeremy Fears. Who's a freshman, so he's going to have 4 more years since he's a redshirt freshman, coming off a gunshot wound. But I think these last 4 years would be pretty much it for him. I don't think he's going to retire after this year. Now, I don't think MSU is making the tournament either. That streak's coming to an end. This team they just don't have the guys in a Big Ten, and the Big Ten's pretty down this year compared to the talent they've had over years prior. But I just don't think MSU has the guys unless they make a switch early. I think Jace Richardson's definitely their best bet. He's a hooper, but he's a freshman, and I don't think a freshman should be relied on in a Michigan State program.
No, yeah, for sure. Also, I wanted to say, because I didn't realize it last night, call me a casual, but I had no clue that win was going to cement Bill Self as the winningest coach in Kansas history. I thought he already had that.
What a game to get it done in. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. I have a question. I do have a question about the game. Do you think this was a poor Kansas performance, or do you think Michigan State played good?
I think it was definitely poor Kansas.
Yeah, I think it was poor all around from both teams. I mean, the shooting splits show that. But at the same time, I feel like Kansas, they've just kind of been struggling to take off on teams. And if they do, kind of letting them inch back in, just like with that UNC game. I mean, there was a point where people thought it was over when they were up by 20 and UNC crawled their way back in. Kansas, I don't know. Maybe it's just them trying to still figure out chemistry together, which could be, that could be the case. And if so, it's just, time's going to tell. But I agree. I don't think they're the number 1 team in the country right now. But also, at the same time, I don't know who is the number 1 team.
I don't even think they're a top 10 team in the country right now, Kansas.
Ooh.
I would say no. After that, no, I don't
coming
think
out
so.
swinging.
I don't think so. I would definitely say as of this current moment, they're not top 10. They're going to have a showdown with Duke coming up. And I still think Duke is a top 5 team before we get anywhere over there. But I just don't think this Kansas team, as of this moment, is top 10. We'll see, though. I mean, again, long season. But the performance they had against Michigan State was just a nightmare, especially that first half, besides Hunter Dickinson, who I think put up 15 of their 30 first half points.
It's scary to think about where that game could have been if Hunter Dickinson wasn't doing Hunter Dickinson things there in the first half. Because we may have gone into halftime looking at like a 4-10 score with the way that game was going. I mean, that was just brutal.
Yeah, coming into that game, obviously we know Hunter Dickinson's from Michigan, spent his first 3 years in Michigan. He only put up 20 points twice out of the 6 times they ever played. So he put up 15 in the first half. I was like, holy shit, this guy's actually going off right now.
No, he was playing really well. I mean, shoot, he was pretty much their saving grace. That's kind of the guy you got to rely on when things get tough.
The reason I'm not all out on Kansas after this is because I just think it's going to be hard to see another night where just everybody's shooting poorly. Like Zeke Mayo, he was cold. Whole team shoots 29.4% from 3. they've just got so many dudes on that squad, perimeter wise, and I mean with their bigs as well, KJ Adams and all those dudes. There's too much firepower on that roster for me to be extremely concerned. But I mean, granted, they do need to figure out why the offense was so stagnant last night and get it fixed, because you can't rely on Hunter Dickinson to be your lone source of offense when everything's going bad, because in the tournament, that's just a formula to get yourself knocked out early.
Yeah, another thing I noticed too, the two big lineup that Kansas ran, that was in that first half at least, that was their best lineup. They had Flory and Dickinson in at the 4 and 5. Yeah. I don't really know. I don't know how that worked out, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a great spacing, but I mean, Flory, we know he's an athlete. The dude is an insane athlete.
Those post dunks were crazy.
He yams the ball, to just put it frankly. He's booming on the rim.
I don't get why they only gave him 12 minutes last night.
He was in foul trouble, I believe.
Yeah, he had 4 fouls.
But KJ Adams didn't do much either. He made me hate basketball.
He made me hate watching basketball. I saw.
This game made me hate watching basketball for a little bit.
Yeah, it was not a. This was not the appetite for a main event.
This is going to be one of those games that we look back on like 5 to 10 years from now. We're like, oh yeah, that game happened. Like that was a real game that took place in the Champions Classic, which is supposed to be like the premier main event to start the college basketball season.
And good old Atlanta, where no Michigan State fans are there, no Kansas fans. There's probably like 25% of the arena's full. And then when we inevitably talk about Duke and Kentucky, you just see the entire arena is filled, which makes sense. It's Kentucky and Duke, the two of the biggest programs in college basketball. But
can I lead this conversation somewhere else real quick? I've got a proposition I want to throw out to the group that I mentioned last night. Let's take Michigan State out and we sub in UConn to the Champions Classic. Who's against it? Who says no?
No, I'm against it completely, actually.
You're against it?
I am. Yes, I'm against it.
Why is that?
Because I think how this started, you have to factor in the 4 coaches who started this, which was Calipari, Coach K, Bill Self, Tom Izzo. All 4 of them are legends. And now we have Shire coming in. You have Pope coming in. I think the only way I don't think they should ever replace Michigan State. I feel like if the Champions Classic is ever going to be replaced, it should just be axed completely the second both Izzo and Bill Self are out of college basketball, which I think is coming up. I think it's in the next 5 years. But until then, I think keep MSU in. Tom Izzo's a legend. He'll always be a legend in college basketball. He's a huge face of college basketball. And just kicking him out for UConn, and UConn's a very successful program. I feel like he's not the best way to go moving forward with the Champions Classic.
Good take. Yeah, I can agree with that.
My problem is, we're calling this the Champions Classic, but when's MSU's last championship to speak for?
It's been 24 years. It's been since 2000.
That's my point on all this.
Which at the same time, kind of goes for except Kansas. Duke and Kentucky haven't won much in a long time, which hopefully that's changing soon. But
that's fair.
Yeah, but I guess speaking of Kentucky and Duke, we had the main event of the Champions Classic, which was arguably the best game of the year so far in college basketball, and could end up being game of the year when the season ends. Luke, I know you're the UK fan. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. We preach no bias on this podcast, and we're going to have a no bias review here, but come on. How about those Cats, baby? Yes, sir. C-A-T-S. Cats. Yeah. We are back, baby. We are so back. All right. Now that I got that out of my system, who wants to take it first?
I'll take it first if you want.
Yeah, I'll start it off real quick. I just want to say, man, Mark Pope, that win last night did some crazy things for this program. I think it kind of catapulted them back into what all the fans wanted to see. And just the way he came out in that second half with his coaching adjustments and picking up full court. And, Duke starting out with that tough in your face man defense and icing every screen, just everything that they did to kind of rattle us. And he came out in the second half and kind of punched him right back in the mouth. just from start of the second to the end of it, that was an absolute coaching masterclass.
You want it, Sully? You want to? I know you wanted to speak on it.
Yeah, I got a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts coming into that game. I think that first half, I was expecting it to get away from Kentucky once that second half started. There was a huge lack of talent, or there was a talent disadvantage that Kentucky was going up against Duke. Duke obviously is the most talented team in the country. They have the projected number one overall pick, Colin Knippel, potential top 10 pick, Kamen Malawach, potential top 10 pick, and then some other very good players that have been in college, such as Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster coming in his sophomore year, who was horrible last night, as an understatement. So was Jackson Robinson, who we thought was Kentucky's best player. He was not Kentucky's best player, and I think Kentucky's best player moving forward, it's Otega-Oweh. I don't really think it is still a debate. And the thing I really love about this Kentucky group, they have multiple guys who can kill you on a game. You can get killed by Kobe Bryant from three. You can get killed from Andrew Carr, who they exploited that mismatch. He went off in that final stretch. Andrew Carr, those 2-and-1s, huge for them. They have Lamont Butler, who can shut you down. They have Jackson Robinson. When he's hot, he's hot. And then Otega-Oweh, who I think is their all-around best player, best defender on the team, or second best defender on the team behind Lamont Butler. Definitely their best help defender, as proven by that turnover that he committed against Cooper Flagg in the final 20 seconds, I believe. But yeah, I think this Duke team, they're very elite still. I'm not out. They're still my national championship pick going forward. I do have a lot of questions, specifically down the stretch. I think that play they ran out of the timeout for Cooper Flagg, I don't know what that was. That's not a play you ever run for Cooper Flagg. That's not his game. I mean, he should never be catching the ball at the top of the key and isoing. And another thing about Cooper Flagg was undoubtedly the best player on the court, but he is very out of control when he gets into that ISO. It's like watching a player on 2K just spam dribbles and just through the legs, fucking spin move behind the back. It's like I was like, what the fuck? And I mean, I know I'm getting a little off topic and mentioning 2K in this now, but I just don't think that's the play moving forward. And he's a 17-year-old. He's gonna learn. I mean, he's potentially generational. We'll see. I hope Shire's learned from this, because that final minute was eye-opening, to say the least, for Shire as a coach, in my opinion, because those final 10 minutes, Mark Pope ran circles around him. The way they picked up full court, Duke only played 8 players, and we'll probably touch on which guys didn't play for Duke that should have pretty shortly. But Duke only playing 8 players, they were gassed. Those legs were dead. Kentucky's sending guys in them to pick up at full court. I mean, they had nothing left in them, and that's insane. Kentucky has at least 3 quality players off the bench: Garrison, Krisa, and then Brea. And Mark Pope is making line changes every minute. New guys are coming in, and it's very impressive, to say the least. It's a whole different brand of basketball for Kentucky, and the sky's the limit for Mark Pope. I think. I genuinely think Mark Pope can build Kentucky back into the national title threat they once were.
For sure. I just want to touch on real quick, speaking of, I guess, John Shire and his coaching decisions in that second half. I was really, really disappointed to see Tyrese Proctor kind of just go unused, not only in the final 3 minutes of the ball game, but just kind of the whole second half. I mean, the first 10 minutes of that ball game, I think he had 8 to 10 of his 12 points throughout the entire game. And at that point, I think he hit 2 threes, and people kind of watching the game figured, oh man, Tyrese probably going to go off tonight. And from that point forward, he just was non-existent out there. And he still shot well, which tells me he just wasn't getting looks, or he wasn't getting the ball at all. And I think if you are relying on a guy like that, a veteran guard who was projected lottery freshman year, and then you're going to give it to your 17-year-old in the Champions Classic and the biggest venue he's played in yet, it's just, I think that was really bad coaching on his part.
Yeah, and that raises my biggest question so far for Duke, is their guard play in big moments. I don't think I saw Proctor or Foster touch the ball at all. Like they were like, all right, let's go to Concanipple in the crunch time, and Cooper Flag are two freshmen. And I like Concanipple. He could be the best shooter in college basketball. He was smoking bunnies, smoking layups. Couldn't knock down a jumper to save his life. But I don't think I'm in on this Duke team if they're gonna have Con running the show. I don't think he's that type of player. I think he's best used as a sharpshooter rather than controlling the action, being the player dictating whether if he's going to the hoop or not, being the ball handler in pick and roll situations.
Yeah, I mean, now that I got my little UK spurt out of the way, I will talk about this game in a more college basketball lens. But I mean, what a statement it is to say that Kentucky's experience took out Duke's young talent. I mean, for years it's been Kentucky has been the young team coming in with the flashy 5 stars to show off. And I mean, Duke has had theirs as well, obviously. Coach K kind of started to adapt there about 2015, 2016. But I mean, Kentucky's experience is really just what won them that game. And if what you would have told me going into that game that Jackson Robinson was going to be non-existent and Kentucky would come out on top, I would have thought you were on something. Like, there's no way. You can't have your best scorer not show up essentially and still come out. But I mean, Carr, he took over. I didn't have him just being a paint force on Cooper Flag down the stretch on my bingo card, but I mean, that happened. Otega, he was scoring and making plays defensively. He had one of those crucial turnovers that Cooper Flag had down the stretch. And when I was watching the second half back today, because I mean, I barely slept after that game. I was so worked up. I had to go back and watch it today, too, to relive some of the best moments. But I think that game really started to change around about 11 minutes left. There was a sequence, and it kind of was the theme of the night for Duke in the second half, where shots just weren't falling. I think Caleb Foster might have got 2 wide open looks the same possession, broke them all. And then Lamont Butler immediately goes down the court, gets an and one, cuts the lead to 3. And from then, it just kept rolling. You had Brandon Garrison making plays, getting in there defensively. He had a really long 2, which I thought was a 3 in the moment. That was clutch. And then immediately gets a layup on the other end. And then Kirk Kriisa just pulling up like Curry with under 5. Like, the momentum just started to swing in UK's favor once the veterans kind of just took control of that game and said, all right, we're not going to lose this. And Lamont Butler, I was really impressed with the way he turned things around in the second half. I thought in the first half he was pretty ineffective, and overall the first half I just thought Duke was going to overwhelm Kentucky with the talent disparity, but that didn't end up being the case. And you got to give credit to Mark Pope, because I think he's a hell of a coach, and I think this is definitely a statement for him as to what his future and his tenure is going to look like at UK, because I mean, a big topic of conversation in the offseason when he got hired is, can he win the big ones? And this obviously isn't the tournament or anything yet, but I mean, beating Duke in Atlanta, Champions Classic, with that talent on the other end, Cooper Flag, I mean, like you said, could be generational. Concanipple, Common Mulak, I mean, he was the most impressive to me of the night, too. I really liked what I saw out of him. He was a force in the paint, but to get a win like that against that quality of opponent, I think it's a testament to the job that Mark Pope is doing. And as a Kentucky fan, I'm really excited to see where the rest of the season heads, because I had a little bit of like kind of mid-tier expectations for this team. But I mean, if this theme keeps up and the veteran experience keeps coming in like it did last night, then I think the sky's the limit for this group.
Yeah, like Dan and Jack, I think you guys kind of like hinted towards it. I think Shire did end up losing them that game. I thought Maluach staying in the game after he was dealing with knee injuries, or the nagging knee injury he had, which turned out to be cramping, I believe. They shouldn't have kept him in after that. I mean, I get in the heat of the moment, it's hard to take a guy out. But I don't know. It's November. You don't want to damage a kid any more than he's already hurting. And then also Cooper Flag. I've seen so much hate on him after those 2 turnovers on social media. Like, I honestly don't believe he lost them the game. He's
No.
He was
17
the best
years
player
old.
in the court.
Easily. He's
He
17
thinks
years old. He's getting double teamed. His teammates ain't helping him at all, getting open. Shire's calling a play. Don't know why he's calling Cooper Flag ISO ball at the top of the perimeter. Like, that's just stupid.
And that's what, Shire talked about in the
Say
post game that was the plan. He said it's worked in practice before. So clearly he's been preparing for that moment. And I mean, it should be simple knowledge to know that when you have Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor, who are both experienced college basketball guards, especially Tyrese, who's a great scorer. I mean, you want them bringing the ball up. And if anything, Cooper Flag excels in getting the ball somewhere, whether it's, on the arc, the wing arc, just somewhere, at the elbow and working from there, not bringing the ball at the top of the key and ISO and trying to go one-on-one with somebody. It's just, that was bad coaching all around by Duke.
I think another thing that Shire kind of messed up was the lack of substitutions down the stretch. Like, those guys were gassed, and you could tell.
Well, I want to ask
James
something.
getting hurt though, like killed everything. I shouldn't say killed everything but he's their most impactful, I'd say, guard defender. He's the most impactful on the top of the key defending guards. Blake, I do want to actually disagree with you on something. Malawach, I do think, even though he's cramping, I do think you have to keep him out there, because if we look at every single time Kentucky went on a little spurt, a little run, he was not on
When he was out the game.
And now going forward, number one, Duke's gonna have to get their cramping problem. This is like 3 years in a row.
I mean, for the past,
I don't know what's going
4
on.
years now.
Yeah, they had
I remember
to get Paulo.
Paulo was dealing with it.
Yeah. But that makes me. I wanted to ask a question on that. If Malawak wasn't dealing with that I think it was the right knee was cramping up or something like that. If he wasn't dealing with that injury and he stayed in the game, was fully healthy, and even Sion James was healthy, do y'all think Duke wins that ball game?
Yes.
I do too. I think just like you said it, Jack, when Common was in the game, I mean, even that whole first half, we were talking about last night just how Kentucky could get absolutely no drives to the paint. And, even with just the man defense that they played on them, they couldn't get around the first guy. And, I mean, the second you do, you got to deal with the 7-2 Demon down low. I mean, he's one of the best shot blockers in the country. But, yeah, I think fully that if he was in the game still, Duke probably would have won it. And, I mean, it just goes to show, like you said, Jack, every single run that Kentucky went on there in the second half, it was when he was out. And that's good on Mark Pope, because he kind of utilized that to his advantage. And, he took advantage of what players Duke had in the game and who was out. Yeah.
But my thing, though, moving forward with Duke is obviously, number one, you got to make sure Malawach can actually play and isn't cramping. When he is, though, in big games, key games, and Duke's going to have a lot of them coming up. I'm going to ask you what you think their record is. In key games, he has to play anywhere from 31 to 33 minutes. Like Malik Brown, he does not have the size. He's 6'8", 6'9". He doesn't have the size. He's a pretty solid defender, but he just doesn't have the size to deal with some bigs. He's going to have to play 33 minutes and only have Malik Brown come in for spot minutes. Because
it's going to be interesting to see when Ngongba comes back. I know he's cleared last night before the game, but obviously he didn't play. Which, if he can provide good backup minutes, that'll help Duke out a lot. Because, I mean, Common's the only true big man that they have. And Malik Brown, like you said, he simply just doesn't have the size or the strength to run the five. I mean, he's a great defender, don't get me wrong. But you definitely need somebody who's going to hold down players like Amari Williams in last night's game. And Common was the only person to do that. And he did a good job.
He kind of owned that matchup.
Yeah.
I do think Amari, though, did give Malawach the work at times. Because Amari is a huge body. His shoulders are
strong, man.
He's when he separated Sion James. Well, actually, I shouldn't say separated. They haven't come out with the official prognosis yet. But he hurt Sion James off like a regular screen. Now, I mean, he's uber athletic. He's huge. He was getting into Malawach's chest with his shoulder and moving him. And Malawach is a pretty lanky guy. And, I mean, yeah, he does need to work on his upper body frame. But, like, still, he was just moving him in the paint at times. Now, Malawach has a 9'5" wingspan, so obviously that helps block every single shot almost. But, I mean, Amari Williams was working Malawach. But they need Malawach to play anywhere from 30 to 33 minutes. He cannot be off the court And I don't think Big Pat, I don't think he's really the answer either. I mean, coming off, I believe it was a lower leg injury. I'm not entirely sure exactly. I think that's obviously very bad for Big's mobility. And he's also a freshman too. I don't really know if Shire will immediately trust him. Now, this is going to add on to another point. Where was Isaiah Evans and Darren Harris? Genuine question.
MIA.
Duke is 4 of 23.
I think with Evans, and I mean, they have such a loaded backcourt off, starting and then off the bench as well. I think he's just kind of struggling to find himself in the rotation, but at the same time, it wouldn't have hurt to at least, put him out there for 5 minutes and just see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, when Caleb Foster's like struggling the way he did last night shooting the ball, I mean, like, why not just throw him out there and try something to mix it up?
And Con too. Con is shooting 5 of 20. He's throwing up some couple insane shots.
Which I don't know. I checked the stats last night, and I don't know if y'all realize this, but Cooper and Con accounted for 55% of Duke's shots last night.
Yeah,
that is absolutely insane.
Wild.
Yeah.
And this is what I worry about with them, like circling back to when we were talking about our regular season conference winners and why I picked North Carolina. I just feel like teams are kind of just going to let Cooper Flagg get what he wants and kind of put the pressure like off of him, and it's going to be on Con, Knipple, and the other guys to make up for it. And like if Con is inefficient like he was last night, which will happen in conference play sometimes, they could drop some games. And then, I mean, relying on Cooper Flagg to just take you to the promised land every single time, it may not pan out for you every single time because, I mean, teams are going to find something. No matter how talented he is, they can find something to try and throw at him.
Yeah, for sure. And another question I wanted to ask, because I know we were talking about it last night, is that we feel like one of Kentucky's main issues, and I'll be honest, even still right now, I don't know how Kentucky won that ball game. It's just it really shocks me. It does.
Straight heart and determination.
Yeah, I mean, literally, just straight grit, man. I mean, grinding it out. And there was plenty of times in that game when Duke could have taken off. And I mean, they get up by 9 and they start shooting threes, extend it to double digits. And then you kind of get worried. But I mean, Kentucky fought, man. They fought their butts off. That was impressive. But I wanted to ask, so I know we talked about Kentucky's kind of main issue right now is them not having a guy that can go get them a bucket when needed. Do y'all think, and I know Amari struggled last night with post scoring, but like we said, I mean, he's not going to see another 7-2 shot blocker like Common for a long time this season, if at all. Do y'all think Amari Williams could be the guy to go get us a bucket, knowing that he can play off the high, he can play off the elbow and dribble drive? He's got the post moves. It's just like I said, they weren't falling. But do you think he could be the guy that could go get us a bucket?
I don't think so. I think if there's anybody on the roster that's going to go get you a bucket, I mean, Jackson didn't show it last night. I still think he may have it in him, but I think at this point where things stand, I've got complete confidence in Otega Oweh to go and make a play. With the way he's been balling to start the season.
It's Oweh right now.
Yeah,
I think Oweh can certainly go get us a bucket. My only question is if he can get it off ISO.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
he definitely puts the most pressure on the rim right now. Sorry to cut you off.
Without a doubt.
No, you got exactly what I was going to say. He definitely can get to the rim, and I mean, he's got a serviceable jumper as well. So I feel pretty confident in him at this point. And I mean, if Andrew Carr is going to do what he did last night in the paint and stretching the floor, I mean, he may be a good option as well if you're going to look to go to one of the big guys. I just think that Amari is a little bit too limited offensively. He has the skill, but I don't think he can be a consistent option for you for long-term success with the squad. But for me right now, no brainer. I think it's got to be Oweh until Jackson finds his groove. And I won't be surprised if we don't get another year of Otega Oweh if he keeps this up.
No, yeah. And with Jackson, man, it's just like I said earlier, Duke was playing that straight in-your-face man defense the entire first half and pretty much all of the second half. It just seemed like he was rattled. I mean, he would try one move, whether it's just ripping through off the pivot, and Con or whoever was guarding was right there, chest out. And it's just kind of like he gave up. He didn't really know what to do. He really played scared, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was one possession I remember that I was really frustrated with. He got the ball. he was in the corner and they kind of just got to him and he just kind of panicked. He didn't get a shot up or anything and didn't even try to find another person. And that kind of stuff just can't happen. He's got to find a way to either get a shot up or to get the ball out of harm's way and get that pressure off of him, because Duke had a lot of momentum in that phase of the game when that moment happened. And those kind of things can snowball into a disaster if you're not careful.
Yeah. Do y'all think Jackson Robinson would be a better fit as a sixth man, just like his role at BYU last year?
No, I still think he's your
know.
starter. I think Kobe
Sure.
Bray is your sixth man, or Kirk Risa, whichever one. Because I think Kirk Risa especially, he shoots some insane shots. Like, there's some heat checks he takes where I'm like, what are you doing?
He's a madman, dude.
He is. And that's what you need. That's why he should be the sixth man. Because if he hits a big shot, you're seeing him going, what the, like, throwing shit. You see him clapping immediately down the court. Like,
He's a team player, man. I mean, you look at him
He
off
is.
the bench,
He's
and
huge.
he's clapping. He's bringing the energy all 40 minutes.
He's not afraid of the moment, that's for sure.
Nah,
We learned that
not at
last
all.
night.
God, no. But that's also could be a problem when he just throws up a random 30-footer out of rhythm with 24 seconds left in the shot clock. Down 2 points, for example.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a scenario where you either love him or hate him.
Yeah,
Yep.
like when we were talking about him in the transfer portal, a big concern of his was him kind of being a shot chucker when it comes down to like crunch time and all that. And I mean, you kind of saw that last night. Like, he had that 1-3 with 5 minutes to go that I mentioned, and then he pulls another one from damn near the logo. And that's not the shot you want in that scenario. But yeah, I mean, circling back to the whole Jackson Robinson six-man thing, I think that's Kobe Brea for now. And he played good last night. It was a quiet game, but he came up big in some moments, like that period before Lamont got that and one I highlighted earlier. Brea had that three off the hard screen from Amari that we were talking about, and that's what kind of got that whole segment rolling. So he's kind of a guy I think you can plug in off the bench, and he's going to go give you a spark. And even if he starts off cold, I think with just how elite of a shooter he is, he's bound to get it going eventually, and that kind of showed last night when he had his first half struggles.
No, yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
Last night, I thought Brea did really well too as a defender. Obviously, he's not a good defender like as a whole, but last night I thought he did pretty well, especially in like there was a dribble drive by Cooper Flagg, and I remember he stepped out for the help and stole it on one possession.
He's got good
big
size
time.
for a guard too. He's like what, 6'6", right?
Something like
he's
that.
6'7".
I was gonna say he looks maybe a little bit taller.
Because he can get down there and he can kind of snag boards and then get the transition going, and then you've got the ball in the hands of one of your shooters and your ball handlers right there. So I like what he's bringing, and I'm excited to see how he keeps developing.
I'll say it seemed like Cooper Flagg struggled most when we didn't have Andrew Carr guarding him, whether it was Ortega, Kobe, or even Amari in that last possession. It seemed like maybe Kentucky would have been better off switching somebody else to guard him.
Yeah, that's kind of shocking that we're singling out Andrew Carr. Like, I thought going into this game, like, complete transparency, when you're looking at that matchup and when I predicted Duke to win this game, I was like, okay, Andrew Carr, he's not going to be able to slow down Cooper Flagg. But, I mean, you got to give him his credit. He kind of did in moments, and Cooper still got his. But, I mean, there were some moments where the team as a whole came through, and, I mean, Carr was going at him, like I mentioned earlier, on offense, and he had a couple of clutch and ones. And I was really impressed with Andrew Carr. I'm definitely buying Andrew Carr stock after this game.
Andrew Carr locked up too. Andrew Carr in that final minute when Cooper Flagg would have those two turnovers, he played the best defense all night, and that's when they needed it. Exactly.
He did.
Right.
He was guarding Flagg right around the free throw line when he tried to do that ISO game, wasn't it? Yeah.
He forced him right into Ortega's help off that Cooper's
and
spin
then
move
Ortega got it
and ripped it. And then also on the 10-second once Owe hit the two free throws, and this is more on Flagg, I should say, but then again, he 17 years old, no timeouts, just you got a desperation time. He's running down the court and he pushed him right into Amari Williams. Once again, Amari Williams, like I talked about, big body. He knifed up Cooper there too, forced him out of bounds, and I mean that was game pretty much too.
Yeah. I want to mention something real quick that's been kind of a popular subject in the aftermath of all this. With let's say that in the off season, Cal stays at UK. Do they win this game last night with him?
No,
they lose.
They
lose
by
by
20. They're losing by 20 without a doubt.
That's the correct answer. Thank you all.
I mean, you saw how Arkansas played Baylor. I mean, I had it going on in the background. If I'm correct, I don't think Arkansas led that game once. It seemed like they were trailing pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
If they led at all, it was very brief. But I think you're right. I don't think they led at all.
It's just, man, and I'm not to diss on Cal because he's one of the best recruiters college basketball has ever seen and just producing pure NBA talent. I mean, like you said in the previous episode, Tag, you got LSU wide receivers and you got Kentucky guards. It's just, it's death taxes and Kentucky guards. It's always been that way.
Yeah, I don't want to disrespect Cal either, but I mean, let's be real here. If Cal was in control of that game, nothing would have changed coming out of halftime. We're probably looking at like an 8 or 10 point loss. And then he would get up there in the post game and be like, this team's young. I mean, we haven't practiced completely together yet. I mean, it's kind of circling back to the breath of fresh air thing. I think this was a much needed moment, like just talking as a Kentucky fan for all of us, just to see us capitalize on that big stage. I mean, this is the first time that Kentucky's 3-0 since 2016. And that's crazy to think about. That's wild.
Absolutely wild. Which, if I'm correct, that means we haven't won the Champs Classic since 2016.
It's either that or we haven't won Champs Classic.
We beat them. I know we beat Michigan State with Maxey, correct?
We beat Michigan State when Maxey hit the 30-footer. Is the last time Kentucky would win that game, win the Champions Classic.
And then after that Michigan State game, the reason we didn't go 3-0 is because we lost to Evansville, if you all remember that.
That was the following game after Michigan State won.
Yeah, literally, we got ranked number 1 in the country, and then we immediately lose that. So,
I remember that game vividly.
Yeah, I remember it for the wrong reasons, obviously.
So I have a couple questions. So I have actually a couple Duke questions, I should say. So crunch time. What is your 5 you're putting out there for John Shire? What are you guys throwing out there? What's your lineup you go to automatic? Everybody's healthy too. Let's make that a hypothetical. But who are you putting out there?
Proctor. If Caleb Foster is firing on all cylinders, I think you got to slot him in there. Then you go Knipple, Flag, and then Mulak. Like the lineup he had last night out there, I really do think it's the best that he can do. I just think shots really just weren't falling. And I think more of their inability to capitalize down the stretch kind of falls on Shire more than anybody, because you can't rely on just ISO ball and hope that it works out in big moments like that. I don't care how good of a talent you've got. You've got to figure something else out than just rolling the ball out there and saying, hey, Coop, go get it done for us.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think the best lineup you could put out there, late game, starting 5, whatever it is the starting 5 he had last night in Proctor, Foster, Knepple, Flag, and Maliak. That's one of the best starting 5s in the nation, pure talent-wise. I just, like Tackett said, I don't think the shots were falling, which is going to happen some nights. I mean, for Kentucky example, they started off 5 for 5 from 3 and then finished, I think, 10 for 25, which is still 40%, but that means that they shot 25% in their last 20.
Yeah, it was pretty rough there for a while.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. We started off the game and we're like, holy cow, they're not missing a shot. And then, 5 minutes later, it's holy cow, they're not making a shot, which worries me about Kentucky because we know teams that live and die by the 3. It's either you're a first-round exit come March or you're going to win the whole dang thing. So we'll see. I mean, we still, we were talking about it. Kentucky was really struggling to drive to the paint that game in the first half at least, and thank God in the second half they made adjustments and turned it around because that's what won them the ball game at the end of the day. Plus just, straight grinding out. But, yeah, man, I mean, Mark Pope did a great job last night. I think he catapulted Kentucky fans and the entire program back to reality and what everyone's wanted to see for the past 10 years.
It felt like a revival of sorts as a diehard UK fan. Like seeing them go up there in that primetime moment and get the job done, it just kind of felt like, old Kentucky was back. And it gives me a lot of excitement. I guess you could say hope and pope as everybody's throwing around. It gives me a lot of hope and pope after last night.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess now that the game's ended and Kentucky's not going to play again until the week 3 AP poll comes out, I think Duke will play another game, but it should be an easy win for them if they're playing. I think they're playing Wofford, I believe.
Yeah, it's Wofford.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagining that they take care of business against Wofford, where do you think both teams are going to end up in the rankings?
Both are going to be top 10 for sure. I think
Yeah.
Duke will stay ahead of Kentucky just because of how far Kentucky is down the poll compared to them. But I mean, I don't really care. Me personally, I should say, I don't really care about the polls. I just go off the eye test. I think as of this
Yeah.
moment, November 13th, 8:02 p.m. Central Standard Time, I think both teams are top 5 teams. Like right now, that was a main event, a high level hoops like game yesterday. Though
Agreed.
this is the first game we've seen so far where both teams actually apart, and not one of them just, for example, Gonzaga Baylor completely faltered. They didn't look the part. Auburn Houston, they looked the part. The problem was they went on some slumps where neither of them just couldn't get anything to go. And the same happened in this Kentucky Duke game, you could say. But I mean, elite defense and then a lot of very, very good moments offensively too.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, both these teams, I think they're top 10 quality. I left this game being very enthused by both teams' performance, to be honest with you. Even in defeat by Duke, if they clean some things up, I think they're going to get right. But
Sure.
I'd say if Duke drops at all, which I don't think they should drop from where they are right now. But as far as that goes, I think they only drop 1 or 2 spots maybe. But for UK, I think you could see a jump maybe up into the 11 to 12 spot. I mean, when you have a performance like that, it's going to be hard for the pollsters to ignore that one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they rank Kentucky. I mean, me personally, I think they're a top 10 team, and I'd like to see them get ranked 10th or 9th. Best case scenario, I don't think they're going to go much higher than that. Worst case scenario, probably 12. But yeah, I mean, I think as of right now, Kentucky's probably a top 5 team, and Duke is too, man. I tell you, Duke's got a rough slate of games coming up for them. I think they play Arizona and then Auburn and Kansas. That's going to be a tough 3 games for them, and it's going to say a lot about this team. And I would imagine I could easily see them winning all 3 of those games. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but by all means, it could certainly happen with the offensive firepower they have. And if Conlon's healthy, I mean, it's really going to be hard for anyone to drive to the paint on them.
So I think they go 2-1 in that stretch. I think they're playing at Arizona. I think that's going to be their 1 loss. I think the Auburn game, they're playing at home, so I think they'll win in Cameron. Now that Kansas game, it's in Vegas. Now the big thing about that is I think Duke's a much better team than Kansas as of right now. Another take I want to put out there, and it could be a little, what are you talking about? I think Amari Williams is a harder matchup for Malawach than Hunter Dickinson will be for Malawach. And why I say that, Hunter Dickinson is not your most athletic big you've seen. He's 7'2". He's a giant still. There's a lot of finesse around the rim. I think Malawach's athleticism could really bother him in that game. His size, both of them are 7'2". They're both giants. I think Malawach can definitely contain Hunter Dickinson to I possibly single digits because Malawach is probably the best rim protector in college basketball currently. At least he's up there for sure. But I definitely think he can alter that game just by taking out Hunter Dickinson and making this a battle between the guards and the wings.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, with that being said, we got a decent slate of games coming up this weekend, starting off with Bama-Purdue. Blake, who do you think is going to win that game?
I think it's an easy choice here, to be honest with you. I think Alabama's going to win. They've struggled early on, but I still don't think Purdue has the firepower to be one of the elite teams in the nation. Braden Smith is going to give you 10-plus points a game, 5-plus boards a game, like 6-plus assists a game. Then you got Fletcher Lawyer, who's going to be like a high or mid 30% from 3 type of guy. Other than that, though, I just don't see a whole lot out of that team, especially with Daniel Jacobson going down for the season. He's one of their higher ranked recruits that came in. He's a freshman this year. He's out with a broken tibia for the season. He's not really a shooter, but his game from behind the arc was progressing a little bit. But you take him out of the sequence. You have Wilberg as one of your most played bigs right now, and then you have Trey Kaufman-Renn. I just don't see a whole lot out of that team right now.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. Daniel Jacobson, man, he really impressed in the. Did he play? He ended up playing one game or two games.
I think just one, actually.
I was gonna say I thought he got injured in his debut, which man, he impressed. I think 13 points and 7 rebounds. He played a really good game. That sucks to see for Purdue. Hopefully he recovers well and comes back stronger. But yeah, I think Bama, especially with that injury, is just going to be too much firepower for Purdue, and I think Purdue's going to end up taking their first loss of the season.
Yeah,
give me Purdue upset.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Purdue upset. Mackey Arena. Purdue's going to hold off at home. I think Braden Smith versus Mark Sears. That's a premier point guard matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
They're going to get killed in the paint by Cliff, but give me Purdue and Mackey. They're going to take this one home. Big upset.
Give me Alabama. Mark Sears. I'm riding with Mark Sears, man. That's my player of the year pick. I got to go with the Tide here. I think that the front court losses for Purdue, I just think that's going to get exposed by Clifford Omarui and Grant Nelson. And I just think Bama overall has too much firepower.
Yeah,
hey, I'm 1-5 in predictions, so prayers to Purdue. I might have just killed. Fade
the trap, man. Fade the trap.
But,
I think I'm 1-2, maybe. I think.
Man, speaking of which, my Kansas-Michigan State prediction, I was so close to getting that down to the T. I think I predicted 79-71, and it ended up being 77-69. That was one of my more impressive predictions. But speaking of upsets, we got a team that upset a ranked team in week 1, and then a ranked team who was upset by an unranked team in week 1, Ohio State versus Texas A&M. Who do y'all think is going to win that one?
I think Ohio State. That's who I got. I think that John Paul Mobley Jr. is one of the more elite freshmen right now. He's coming off the bench. I think he's going to be a lottery pick, to be honest with you. If he keeps up this rate, that might be a hot take, but I believe he's a very good scorer right now.
Man, you already know who I'm going with in this matchup. Ohio State. Come on now.
Where's the game at? Do you guys know?
Let me check.
I actually don't know. I can check.
Is this a neutral game or a Texas A&M?
It is at Texas A&M. It is at
Texas A&M?
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me A&M. Wade Taylor game.
If they want to win this, it's going to have to be a Wade Taylor game. That's for sure.
He's going to drop 30 on 40 shot attempts. It's going to be great.
You got to do what you got to do sometimes. But this is another game between very good guards. Wade Taylor, he can get a little trigger happy. I like Wilcher, though. And there was another guard I can't think of.
Bruce Thornton.
Bruce Thornton's very good. Obviously, you mentioned Mobley. And then Michi Johnson. He's also another. Yeah. He can get a little trigger happy, too. But these are five very solid guards that I'm very intrigued to see play in this non-conference matchup.
Give me Michi and Bruce in this one. I'm riding with them.
I agree wholeheartedly. I picked Ohio State to win my Big Ten, and I'm not changing that take anytime soon. I think they were underrated coming into the season, and I'm going to ride that one out till they're there in the Final Four, and I can sit here and say I told you so. But yeah, I think they're going to replace some of the best in the country.
Best of luck to Buzz Williams. You're probably going to lose now because I predicted you to win.
Kentucky legend Aaron Bradshaw, turn up for me on Friday, whenever this game is. Let's go AB.
Yeah. And then our last game that we're going to kind of talk about and predict, Marquette versus Maryland. And this is a game where I guess looking at it on paper, most teams would think Marquette's got this, but it's a game at Maryland, and ESPN's actually predicted Maryland to win the game. So who do y'all think is going to take it out?
Maryland. Give me Maryland.
You think Derek Queen 2020 game's coming again?
It is possible. They have the bigs to neutralize Marquette. They got Rodney Rice off the bench. elite bucket getter, and they also have Jacoby Gillespie, who is a very quality point guard. I think this could be the signs of Marquette possibly struggling this year. Cam Jones, we know he's an elite bucket getter, but this is basically not a whole new team, but this is a team without their leader for the past couple of years in Tyler Kolek. This is the first quality opponent they're going to get. And they also struggled with Central Michigan, I believe, yesterday, 2 days ago. They let Central Michigan get back in the game a little bit. They pulled away, obviously, their talent prevailed. But I think this is a big showing for Maryland. I'm not a big Kevin Willard guy personally, but I do think this is the game they're going to get, because Derek Queen, he's a go-getter. He's going to get you, predicting his stats right now, he's going to get you 14 and 11. And if I'm right, just let you know I'm going to win the lottery too, because I'm going to put all my money on lottery tickets. But if I'm taking Maryland easily.
I kind of agree with Sully on this one. I think this is an upset spot for Maryland. I think they get it done. I think you're going to see, like he's been pointing towards the last couple episodes, the loss of Kolek. I think that may shine through in this kind of game. And I think Maryland comes out with the win.
I'm having deja vu from the Duke and Kentucky predictions we did, where we all four said Duke's going to win. But, I mean, I'm going to have to go with Maryland here. I agree with Sully. I think Derek Queen's going to go off. Marquette's kind of this season. They're a little down compared to where they were with Kolek. Maryland's been blown out, weaker opponents by 30-plus recently, while Marquette was struggling with Central Michigan, who's a weak MAC team. So give me the Terrapins, or however you say it.
Terps, baby.
Terrapins. Terps.
Well, I guess that means that I'm going to have to take the other route, and I'm going to go with Marquette here. I think if they want to win this ball game, Cam Jones, kind of like y'all said with Texas A&M and Wade Taylor, I think Cam Jones is going to have to go absolutely nuclear. And I'm talking, maybe 30-plus range for this win to happen. But yeah, I think we're going to find out a lot about Marquette. Is this game Friday or Saturday?
Check that for you.
Whichever day it is. Friday night, Saturday, whatever.
Friday.
We're going to find out a lot about Marquette come Friday night. And if they can pull off this win, it'd be an impressive one. I mean, not the most impressive, but I think it maybe would at least cement themselves as a top 25 team as of right now.
You guys care if I do a little live interruption here real quick, just on the college basketball world tonight? We got some things that are standing out to me here.
No way. They're an upset.
We got 18 minutes to go in the second half. Troy 29, Arkansas 29 at Bud Walton.
Oh my God.
And we have 35-40, Auburn barely up against Kent State with 16 minutes to go in that one.
I like Kent State. They're a decent team. Kent State's actually not that bad of a mid-major, I should say. And wow. I know we just said those were three big predictions. We don't really need to make any more predictions. But Friday, big mid-major matchup. Loyola, Chicago versus Princeton. I will be seated for that game. I'm letting you know ahead of time. That's probably the game I'm going to watch. I think Princeton. Xavier Lee, I believe his name is, the guard. That kid is a baller. And now Loyola Chicago, I like Denzel Valentine or Drew Valentine. Denzel Valentine, I like you too. But Drew Valentine. Drew Valentine could possibly be the next Michigan State head coach. I want to see how he fares in a game against another elite mid-major, we can say. And we'll see if he has it suited to be the next MSU head coach in the future.
Hey, while we're on the subject of mid-majors, I got to point out my mid-major game of the week here, too. New Mexico, they're going to Ricky P's house and taking on St. John's. I'm going to be looking.
That's a good one. We should have reacted to that
one. Father versus son. Son.
The Patino Bowl. I can't wait for that one, man. And, hey, New Mexico, they're legit, bro. I think they can
be good, man.
Sleeper in March. Donovan
Dent.
He's nice.
But, man, I'll tell you, St. John's is good, too. They just had a 21-point win tonight. I mean, I think personally, I'm going to have to take St. John's in that one. I think they got a good roster, and I forget his name, but what's the point guard's name? He played at Georgia Tech and Mississippi State.
Devon Smith.
Devion Smith. I said Devion Smith. That kid's a baller, man. He's a true athlete. I think I think St. John's has got a good roster this year. I mean, they beat Rutgers in an exhibition, which doesn't say a whole lot because Rutgers has their own flaws as well. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to take St. John's in that one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think St. John's is winning that.
Give me Little Ricky. He pulls off the upset, gets it done against his dad. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go New Mexico. We're in on the Lobos.
Best of luck, though. We finally got another split house.
Lobos.
Tell me who's in the house tonight. New Mexico.
Well, with that being said, that's going to be episode 3 for y'all. We appreciate everybody tuning in. And as always, we're live on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and this video will more than likely be posted on YouTube for your enjoyment. So yeah, my name's Daniel Fowl. I'm the host. And then I've got my co-host Luke Taggett, Blake Smith, and Jack Sullivan. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. And until next time.
Easy as that.
Easy as that.
Hope and Pope, baby. Woo!